Attention, passengers. This is your co-pilot speaking. Your pilot is black-minded, so you are not going blind and there is no power failure. You are merely experiencing the immense blackness of his proximity, and when you hear his voice, you and the cabin will get even darker than you are currently. We will be cruising at the speed equal to light because the one other thing that travels equally fast is darkness. Your loved ones awaiting your arrival may not recognize you at first sight. This is normal. Simply tell them about the pilot and they will understand. We will taxi to the runway now, so please buckle up and prepare for a high-speed departure. Thank you for choosing Jet Black Airways, where the phrase Jet Black is also a verb. We hope you keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Justice forever.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Let me first give a shout out to D. Smith because when you come through on the Cash App, you come through very generously. And this time is twice within half a month. And I thank you from the bottom of my black heart, from the depths of my black mind for that. I mean that. You've actually kept a lot of things going. And I want everyone to understand that you have actually carried. If I were to ask everyone for chump change for a little bit, then you would have carried the weight of 200 subscribers of mine. The other thing I want to point out is that to the bulk of you, to the audience, is that a shout out goes to S Jacques because he comes through consistently. And then he also sends links that give me a bigger view, a wider view, and a more close-up view, a sort of zoomed in and zoomed out view of what is going on in other parts of the world not too far from here. Let me tell you this, guys. From him, I'm going to share with you 3 things that I've learned about recently, but I've learned a hell of a lot more. And we have to pay attention internationally and not just what's going on in North America. The Sahel Alliance is now discussing coming with a common passport. And this is sort of like using the a European Union passport. They're discussing this, and I don't know how long it would take them to get it done, but if they make one available to its citizens, which the East African Federation has made available, then they would be the second regional bloc within Africa to precede the African Union in making a regional passport available. Chad and Senegal could easily get in on this too. They have also told France to either tone it down or fit the guck out and get lost and stay their ass out. The other, and this is something to pay attention to because you have the CARICOM passports for Caribbean islands. And that's important. As it stands right now, the passports of Wyatt nations are the ones that are envied, along with Gulf nations' passports. We're working towards a time when Black nations' passports will be accepted and envied. These are steps to that. Now, with this being said, I learned about this from S Jacques. The second thing I learned from him that is of importance to us is about the Chinese New Year celebration going on in Uganda. I'm not going to sit up and say that the Ugandans made fools of themselves, because they didn't make fools of themselves. The Chinese that participated in the New Year celebrations within Uganda were also wearing local clothing and putting on some local cultural displays. And they weren't making a mockery and blackface either. So that's fine. But if I may, allow me to point this out too. There were Ugandans that were putting on some of the Chinese outfits, and they were putting on cultural displays typical of China. And so, since this was a mutual imitation and it was part of an intercultural display, as someone who understands how nations operate, both their governments and their populations interact, I can say that this was actually very normal. So this was not Ugandans having an inferiority complex. This was not that, because this went both ways. But this was a situation in which I would say to the Ugandans that you don't let anyone else come along and determine for you when the new year is going to be. You decide this for yourself. Really, what I want is for Black folks to understand that the new year is not really something to celebrate, whether Europeans do it or the Chinese do it or whenever. It doesn't make a difference. If you have to go by somebody else's calendar and you're forced to do it, you still don't let them determine when it is and what it is that you celebrate. Some would say, well, come on. I mean, Jet Black, you see how the Chinese are acting in Africa. Well, I just told you how they're acting. And when you tell me about the ones who fight the police in African countries and get slapped because they called us poor, smelly monkeys, or get deported for racist statements, you're telling me. So we're both telling the truth. And that's because China's population is entirely too mother cuss word big for all of them to relate to us the same way. You got Chinese that are actively, diligently learning how to speak the Hausa language. I'm not joking. I can't make that up. Now, it's up to them if they want to or not. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is that they are not always fighting with us. That's what I'm trying to get you to realize. The Chinese tend to go back and forth. And I think that for the most part, Africa's been as fair as it could possibly be in dealing with them, because you see, unlike white folks that used to go there and break laws in Africa and then get away with it, Chinese don't do that. If they do get caught breaking laws, they get arrested. They fight the police. They still go to jail. I'm not saying none of them ever do. I'm saying the ones that do still go to jail. This tells me that Africa as a whole has learned its lesson. You don't let them come here and act a mother cuss word fool. And if they arrest someone for breaking the law, the Chinese embassy does not jump in and say, hey, you got to let them go because they're one of ours. You can't prosecute them. No, the Chinese embassy might simply say, you have to let us visit them, which is true for any nation. And that's enough right there. We, FBA, have learned how to properly deal with other groups from the position of an ethnic minority. That is how we are dealing with other groups, and we're right to do it. Other nationalities of Black folks are dealing with other groups as nationalities, and they're right to do so. What I learned from watching this video, thank you, S Jacques, for sending that, was that Black folks in general must learn both. We have ways that we can teach them to relate to others, and then there are ways we do that we should not teach because they don't work, but they could teach us some other ways. But that involves nuance and a balance, and I know that we don't like that because it sounds to us like jumping back and forth and hopping from foot to foot and fence straddling, and that when it feels like that, well, that is a bad feeling, but that's not what I'm referring to. It's not what I'm advising. I am advising a sense of balance. The next thing, my people, is that, and this is the third thing I've learned from S Jacques, and I want to thank him for sending this as well. There has been a Dutch drug lord convicted already and sentenced that is a fugitive from the Netherlands, and he was on the run for to wherever, but he managed to make his way to Sierra Leone, and now he's either a close friend at least, or he is the husband of the daughter of the president of Sierra Leone. And if he is a close friend, at the very least, okay, that's too much. And if he is the president, the husband of this president's daughter, then that's even worse. If this turns out to be a case of mistaken identity and it's not her, then that would explain a lot, and it would be okay. But we have to stop and think about what the hell this means. You see, what this means is that if you are European, you can be a drug lord, convicted and sentenced, but you're white European. And that means an African woman will find you desirable enough to marry. And that's what that means. And we're going to have to question really these notions of sisters having so-called rights to choose whoever the hell it is they want, when in fact they want almost exclusively who is bad for them. You see, I say that because in this case, the Netherlands asked the president, and he said he didn't know this guy. And he said, I'll cooperate with the authorities because this man is a fugitive drug lord who's been tried and sentenced, though in absentia because he wasn't there. He's the one that didn't show up for the court date. He didn't even defend himself. So, yeah, exactly. Guess what the walk this means? If you want to come here and look for him, I'll have my police accompany you. Let's get to it. Now, that's not the talk of a daughter daddy that loves his daughter more than he loves justice. But what this shows is that even in Africa, when your dad is the president and he's in your life, if you are a woman of the black race, you are subject to brainwashing, either from TV and that white man, or from your friends. Either I don't really feel a guck. Nigerian women have shown that to them, that white man is more valuable. Hands down. Don't even argue about it. They've shown this to them as far as they're concerned. There have been many nations in which you can't jump over the men of your own country in order to marry a fugitive from another country knowingly. In Thailand, a Thai woman was not arrested at the same time as her German fugitive husband because it turned out she didn't know he was a fugitive. So the Thai did not arrest her because of that. But if they had determined that she knew he was a fugitive when she married him, she would have been picked up too. And I can understand why a nation would say, you don't jump over your own men. And they'd probably do the same thing to a Thai man that married a woman that's a fugitive from another country. Oh, you going to jump over your own women and marry a fugitive from somewhere else? I could see them doing that. when these brothers that are passport bros, and that's why SPM and IBMOR all get together and they start saying, hey, listen, here's what's going on. We're going to sidestep many parts of Africa because we don't want to go back to the source of some of these problems that we have with the American sister. I don't have a leg to stand on and tell them don't do that, except and unless if I can tell them that a particular portion is traditional and not misandric. Now, if I can tell them that, fine, well and good. What happens since I don't have a map of these areas and their attitudes towards men? What happens when I don't have that map? Well, I can't tell them anything. The most I can say is, you know what? You're doing the right thing by protecting yourself. I don't know. I can't tell you how the women there are going to behave for the most part. So I can't tell you not to write them off or to write them off. What can I say? I get it. We already know that the Keisha in North America can have a dad in her life, and she would jump over good men of whom a dad would approve, even if she likes him to get with a no good nigga daddy can't stand. I'd be willing to bet you money that one of the reasons that Lori Harvey didn't want Michael B. Jordan was because Steve Harvey was like, he's a good dude. I'd bet you money that that's what it was, that has a lot to do with it. She wants to be for them streets. Why does she want to be from them streets? Why does she want to be for them streets? Well, she can't do that and be with a guy like Michael B. Jordan. And plus, she probably could pick up on the fact that he was not a knucklehead, knuckle dragging nigga when he was younger. And evidenced by the fact that her stepdad approved. She had a dad when her mother made decisions that should have caused her to not have one in her life. Yeah. I want you guys to stop and think about that. We know about that. Well, apparently, it's like that even back in the motherland. And it's not like her dad was okay with this stuff because he said, yeah, I'll cooperate with the authorities. Now, what I could say is that, and I don't know how the daughter would think if she marries him, he wouldn't find out. Maybe they're not even married. Like I said, the only thing that would make this okay is if it turns out that it's not the president's daughter. But I learned about this and how bad it can get again in another example from S Jacques. And I wanted you to understand and be aware of this and know this. There is more into which I could go, but I don't necessarily want to bore you. I do want you to understand that internationally speaking, black men may wind up being politically different from black women, not just the North American ones, not just some of the bros from the islands, certain misandric island cultures like Jamaica. I want you to understand that this may very well spread to certain parts of the continent. South Africa, why the hell wouldn't it? These men are catching it in South Africa, catching pure D hell in South Africa. I can tell from some of the South African women's confessions on Facebook and Twitter. I can tell by some of the things they're saying. You can, like I said, you can see a list of the confessions. I forgot how many I've got right now. I can't remember how many I have on Buy Me a Coffee. You want to see every last one of them? Get the first class membership, 10 USD a month. Yeah, you'll find out all the ones I got so far. A lot of them are quite a few of them, a handful of them are from South Africa. That's what we're fighting against. Brothers, we shouldn't have to go through it, but we wind up having to anyway because, well, their thinking is why the hell not? And that's not fair to you, but you're dealing with more and more parts of the motherland that we are finding out are just anti-black misandric. Angola is one. The big cities of Cape Verde is another. Southern Nigeria is another. Apparently, Sierra Leone can be added to that list. A white pookie, once again, though a drug lord and probably had money, a white pookie, once again, is better to this woman than not only the men of her country, but even the men of neighboring countries, even if they had money. This man, this white pookie, can mess around and appeal to her despite the security. She's got security around her through which men can't even appeal. But this guy can. And what does this tell you? This actually puts into greater context what Dennis Sperling has covered over the last few days regarding these mass deportations and Sisters in America's reaction. Sisters in America reactions to this. And that Indian British man who said that sisters have been amazing to him. He wasn't lying. That's what they've been to him when they have not been to you. And these sisters in the U.S. talking about ICE ain't going to come in my classroom, taking my kids out of my classroom. But we have not seen them once talk about fighting with any authorities who wear badges in order to stop little black boys from being wrongly put into special ed classes. It's a valid point. And what I'm saying is that sort of mindset apparently is not unique to Black North America. Not at all. We have to stop and think about this and be careful. I hope to God that we can continue to analytically think, critically think, and understand and pick apart what it is that we're seeing. And the thing is, if you become an ADOS gangbanger, where you take delineation into division and hatred, and automatically start calling everybody that's not FBA a tether, then you'll begin to miss these particular patterns that really would help us to understand, because many of us are still reacting to brown folks telling us, even if we got a common enemy, ain't no black and brown alliance. It's you help us, and then we turn around and say screw you as soon as we think white folks will accept us. And we're starting to apply this to non-FBA black folks that don't act this way towards us. That's not fair either. Shay Sade brought up a valid point. If every time any black woman does some foul stuff and we start talking about that's a black immigrant, that ain't no black American woman, what is that going to do? It's going to always absolve black American women of accountability when they are accountable and wrong and guilty. She's right. Absolution of guilt and exoneration is great for the innocent, but not for the guilty. It's dangerous to do that for the guilty. You don't do that for the guilty knowing that they're guilty, because otherwise you're simply going to pave the way for others to be guilty later. Rhoda Usman was not FBA. I get that. Do you think that she'd never learned anything from them, though? She said she was Muslim and then started doing voodoo. Fit the guck out my face with that sure bit. Why was she proud to be a lesbian approaching other women, but she would have been embarrassed to actually make an approach to a man that she liked. She'd walk up to men she doesn't know and slap them, but she wouldn't ever walk up to a man she likes and say, listen, you know what? You can take me home and hit that and smash. But she's a single mom. Make that make sense. Who do you think she learned that from? I'm telling you, it wasn't her people that taught it to her. I know. You got some ratchet chicks in their community, but they don't make it a point to go and teach women that ain't ratchet like themselves. And for the most part, they don't act ratchet when they're in their home environment. They got to go somewhere else. They go out of their way to leave home and act ratchet elsewhere where they could get away with it like she did. Now, they have some rough around the edges misandric bullshit that they got to deal with. But this notion of I'm just going to hit men, but I'll never validate a man. And I'm to be like Rhoda? No, bruh. The rough chicks back home in Somalia don't act like Rhoda. They got to leave, and then they sit up and learn from whom to model their behavior because they want to know what they can get away with. And that's what I wanted you to keep in mind. It doesn't really do us much good because I stated before, as I told you all before, when it comes to being divisive in the name of FBA, not fighting divisive Negroes from any nationality, but when it comes to being divisive from FBA, that only serves the interest of Massa and his loyal bottom bitch. And why do I say that? Real simple. While we as men are generally trying to combat divisiveness that is unnecessary and harmful from divisive house niggas, I shouldn't even say house niggas, no, from divisive Uncle Tom ass niggas of any nationality, the fact remains that the sisters that are telling you to be this divisive are friends with the worst of women from Nigeria. Not even the best. They don't want to be friends with the best women of Nigeria. No, they want to be friends with the nastiest chick from Lagos. They don't want to learn anything from the women of Kaduna or Katsina or Kano. Not even Plateau State. Nope, they want to learn from the worst of them from Lagos, ideally. The most misandric, the most materialistic, the most anti-black racist. The most selling out, the most adulterous, the most paternity fraud practicing. Yeah, them bastard niches. They make friends with them and learn from them. That's why they're coming to you talking about every other man around the world just pays for everything that the women want. No, nobody can afford everything a woman wants. No man and no woman can afford that. Because you'll never be done paying. And they'll never be done wanting. So that's out. They make friends with the worst of Jamaican women. And vice versa. I said before, the hyena is going to make friends with the hyena regardless of nationality because hyenas hate you more than they love themselves. I've stated this before. They just want you as men at each other's throats. And that's why I refused to get into the gangbanging aspect of it. I wasn't going to sit up here and let sisters of any nationality try to pit me against other brothers that ain't never done nothing to me and don't hate me. So yeah, I want you all to pay attention. This thing is that this anti-black misandry is international. And yes, I'm calling it that even if this woman turns out to not be the president's daughter, but if she is, that just really makes it worse. And I'm calling it anti-black misandry because look who she had to jump over, white and black, to get to this Dutch drug lord. You got regular run-of-the-mill Dutchmen walking around. And sisters, like I said, they don't even require that if you are not black, you be a criminal to come to a thug in order to qualify. They don't even have this requirement. They don't pressure each other to have that requirement. So that means she went out of her way for no reason, just to send a message to black men. You could be responsible, but because this dude's white and has more money, I would rather this than to be with one of you responsible black men. That's what I'm getting at. So that being said, you understand now why I thank S Jacques and D Smith, of course. And you understand why it is that I tell you all to learn from men of other nationalities. And I definitely am not telling you to learn from men of other races and nationalities and then refuse to learn from men of other nationalities within our same race. You understand now? You can get a very good perspective when you listen to them. And then when you learn some nuance, you can teach them a whole lot too. I pray that this advice helps you like it has helped me. As always, thank you for listening. Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackout, Assalamu Alaikum, Black Heterosexual, Non-Select Male Power, Black Patriarchy until extinction or Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us once again here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.